Hello everyone and welcome to Suzerain, a game which I'm really looking forward to playing. It's a game, kind of a political simulator where you have to choose your own path, your own story, your own adventure, and these big political decisions that you make will have lasting consequences for you, your family, but also the wider country of these rather notably non-real countries. They're definitely similar to real life countries, but definitely made up. So here we have Sordland, that's who we're going to be playing as. I think we can play as other countries. But given this is my first time playing, I believe you have to play as Sordland. I have played the intro just so I get a little bit familiar with how things are, but let's crack into a new game. By the way, I'm absolutely going to be changing between Suzerain. I apologise, it's just going to happen. So we are an upstart politician, here we go. Republic of Sordland, the main story. So we've got a government, presidential republic, population of about 37 million, however we are in a recession. We do have some major power within the region, and starting date of 1954, Anton Rayne has been elected the fourth President of Sordland amidst a deep recession. Demands for reform and external pressures continue. Start the story. And I'm really looking forward to this because I don't know if you've noticed, I've been playing a lot of political, not necessarily political simulators, but things with strong, tough decisions that you have to make. Frostpunk, the trolley problem. I really like these kind of tough decision makings. It really kind of racks my brain and just makes it a lot more interesting for me. You are my enslavement and my freedom. You are my flesh burning like a raw summer night. You are my country. Nazim Hikmet Ran. So we get to play our intro here. 1908 in the Kingdom of Sordland. You opened your eyes to this world. You came from either a wealthy family, a middle income family, or an impoverished family. I say we come from an impoverished family. We're going to be kind of a phoenix from the ashes. So we come from an impoverished family in the city of Delia. Your parents named you Anton. As the only child of a farmer, you spent your childhood amongst wheat fields. Life was not easy. You were too poor to afford a good education. The Rayne family was caring, regardless of their economically dire situation. Your parents always did their best to support you. During history class at school, the bell started to ring unexpectedly. You heard a loud commotion outside. As everyone tried to figure out what was going on, the principal arrived at the historic revolution. The kingdom was no more, and the Republic of Sordland was born. The only home you've ever known. So we were, 15 now? Because 1908 was when we were born. So 15, I think we would have some extent of what would happen. I think we were somewhat worried because we don't know quite the consequences of what would have happened. After graduating, you passed the university exam with high marks. Even though your family was poor, the public education system made it possible to go to university. You had the opportunity to choose between several studies. Choose law, economics, or history. And personally, I'm going to choose history because I've always had a deep fascination with history. It was one of my love subjects at school, even though I know many people don't particularly like it. But we all choose history at the Deria University of Culture. During the first year, you attended a lecture with David Whiskey? Call him Whiskey. I'm not entirely sure. I'm obviously going to butcher some of these names, that's for sure. He was a well-known diplomat from the Foreign Ministry and son of the President. After examining the whole in science, he explained why realpolitik good game by the way, is important for a successful foreign policy. He argued that a strategy based on practical and material factors would be much more successful in reaching Sordland's ambitions. I think I would agree with that. By the way, I did at school, I did both history and politics at the highest level within the UK school system. I didn't take it further to university, but I did at least do that. So I do have a general understanding of some politics, although of course this will be slightly different as this is all a fictional country and fictional people. 1927, soldiers entered the campus in the evening ahead of the first election. Many were in shock at the uniformed men creating a security cordon and started arresting the teachers. A group of students started gathering in protest. Along with your best friend Petrovecton, you decided to... let's protest. We're not going to be killed because we're the main character. At least not yet. One of the officers made a loud announcement through the campus. General Ludurin has declared martial law in order to restore the administration. Please stand back and disperse to your rooms. You join the students and suddenly march towards the large group of soldiers. Suddenly, the soldiers charged. A student fell and was trampled as everyone started running away. Ooh, hold our ground. The soldiers beat you relentlessly. It was a gloomy year. But we stood up for what we believed in. That was important. The coup split the students into two groups and caused frequent fights. Torture and imprisonment of any opposing voice became a daily routine in Daria. You didn't want to stay idle and decided to join a student council, human rights group, or political debate group. All of which I feel like would be shut down if they're opposing voices. We'll go for a human rights group. The group heavily protested against the deteriorating human rights situation in Sordland. You contributed in thorough discussions on how to protect and expand freedoms. In one of the meetings, Petra Vecton introduced you to a classmate of his, Monica. You were immediately attracted to her intelligence, beauty, or diligence. Let's say diligence. She mentioned to you that she was a volunteer for the Swordish League of Women, an organisation campaigning for women's rights. You told her wholeheartedly you supported her cause, or you weren't particularly interested in women's rights, but asked her to dinner nonetheless. No, we'll go for the first one. The politically charged environment led you to join the Red Youth, the Socialists, the Young Swords, the Nationalists, or stay away from any political organisation. Let's stay away from any political organisation for now. I'm sure we'll have to make our decision later on down the line. The radio relayed that the Communist General Ricard surrounded Ludiran and his troops, demanding their surrender. They refused, and heavy fighting broke out across the country. You couldn't believe it, the army was fighting amongst themselves, and Sordland has plunged into chaos. The clashes escalated into full-blown civil war. The horrors made you isolate yourself for a while. Monica helped you cope, and love grew between the two of you. However, it was a difficult time for love. The chaos has to end. The charismatic colonel, Tarquin Sol, orchestrated a sudden attack on the capital where the Ludiranist and Ricardist forces were battling each other. He defeated both, ending the war. A new constitution was written and the military government began efforts to restore stability. Many people saw the colonel as a saviour. He formed the United Sordland Party and ran as a presidential candidate in the first ever single-party elections. Oh, but a single-party election's not a real election. That's just a run to dictatorship. So we don't vote out of principle. USP won the election by a large majority. The military government announced a 4-year restoration period to transform an entirely civilian government. After graduation, you kept seeing Monica. You're both interested in marrying and starting a family. However, a letter arrived from the military calling you to fulfill your compulsory service. It was time to serve your national duty. A devastating civil war broke out in the neighbouring country, Wales. It quickly turned into a proxy war between regional and world powers. The distinguished Major Joseph Lancia ordered you to lead your squad on a border patrol mission. It was a very cold winter night when you began marching out of Gumren outpost. You could see your breath. After several hours of marching through the snowy hills, distant noises were heard. Visibility was too low to confirm the source, so the squad crawled forward in a formation and found a spot to observe. A group of refugees had made it beyond the border fence. You either escort them back or let them slip through. Ooh, I'd like to let them slip through, but I feel that if I do, then there'll be dire consequences for me, so I'm going to escort them back. Oh dear. The refugees were in despair when they realised that you were taking them back to the border. Screams and protests ensued as they were restrained. You delivered them back to the border guards. After several months of military service, your duties ended and you went back to civilian life. You and Monica decided to share your lives together. After receiving the blessing of her parents, the ceremony was held in Holsword. During the same year, you were offered a high-paying job within the governing United Sordland Party. It was important to start your career on a good foot, so you accepted it. So working for the ruling party was the easiest path to power. The financial compensation was too great to pass up, or was the best opportunity to change the country for the better. Let's choose that one. You became the foreign policy assistant to one of the more experienced members of Assembly. You worked long and hard, reviewing dozens of foreign policy plans late into the night. You were climbing the ladder. Tarquin Sol gave amnesty to the remaining factions of the Civil War and chose de-escalation and appeasement. The institutions and symbols of the former kingdom were slowly replaced. His government launched several new initiatives, such as the Citizen-Funded Bills Programme to revitalise the economy, a social labour initiative to help rebuild and improve society, and a large dam project to solve the energy crisis. The first multi-party elections in the history of the Sordland were held. President Tarquin Sol was elected once again. The preparation of a comprehensive trade agreement with Agnolia, was occupying most of your personal time, but your significant contribution to the trade talks triggered an invitation to meet President Tarquin Sol himself, who offered you a key position. You were to become the youngest member of the Assembly. Except with doubts. I think it's always good to be wary of such a thing. As the youngest MP, it was difficult to connect with the influential inner circle. You needed allies, so you brought on Petrovectin, your best friend, as best man, as your right-hand man. The birth of your son Frank provided a brief moment of joy and relief. You sacrificed work to spend time with your family, or vice versa. Sacrifice work because I feel like we need to spend time with our family. During your absence, Petrovectin found trustworthy contacts and strengthened your position in the party. At the same time, President Sol increased his authority over the years. His growing ego started to cause strife within the USP. As expected, the cracks begin to show. President Sol barely secured a majority in the election over the opposition leader. Over the next year, the Sordish people grew increasingly discontent with the corruption and the worsening quality of life. Meanwhile, calls for a united Sordland Party Congress become louder as the leadership struggle began to brew. You join the internal opposition, keep supporting the president, or watch on the sidelines? No, let's join the internal opposition. You gave your support to Ewald Alfonso. So a reformist businessman who became the leader of the reformist wing of the United Sordland Party, the main contender for party leadership. Meanwhile, in a desperate effort to secure votes before the Congress, President Sol was meeting party members one by one, but did not approach you. The Congress was nothing short of impressive. The banners of the United Sordland Party were decorating every possible spot. Thousands of influential political figures, lobbyists and benefactors gathered for this turning point. The voting for this party leadership had begun. And we're not going to go vote for Tarquin Sol, he's had his day. We will vote for Ewald Alfonso. The efforts bore fruit as the contentious leadership vote was won by Ewald Alfonso. During the Congress, Sol announced he would retire from politics at the end of his term and appointed Alfonso as vice president. You knew the structure he had established was to stay. The country had become increasingly authoritarian. You were happy that Sol was finally leaving, troubled by the departure of Sol. Didn't care who was in charge. I do care, but I'm going to say I'm troubled because there's a lot happening. A month later, your daughter was born. Monica named her Dina. She motivated you during a tumultuous period in the party. As the VP and leader of the USP, Alfonso began dismantling the old organisations and structures established by the USP, such as the State Educators Corps and the Swedish State Corporation Bills. The general elections were approaching. The United Sordland Party was under new leadership. We will join the party effort and campaign for him because that's the best way to get ourselves in the midst of the high-ranking places to take over. During the general elections, the main opposition leader was embroiled in a sex scandal with a secretary. Definitely a political game now. He was replaced by the more popular figure Franz Richter, but the damage had been done. The new economics policies and the extensive privatisation programme proposed by Alfonso secured an election victory for the United Sordland Party. Over the following years, you did your best in order to make Sordland a better place. But it's not always going to be the best option. Sometimes you have to be a hard, tough political machine, and it may not be within the best interests of who's at heart. The presidency of Alfonso saw many bold reforms in government and law and advancements in liberal and democratic values. He valued your support throughout. However, due to infighting and disorganisation, continental economic tensions and fast-track privatisation, it was followed by a severe economic recession. The other parties announced their bids for the 1953 election, but the unfair election system hampered opposition efforts to campaign. You were worried about the economic recession. With Petra's help, Petra, Peter. Let's go with Peter, actually. Peter, your presence in the USP grew. The two of you worked long nights together. He fled opponents to your side. You soon became the face of a new wing of the party. Step by step and with adequate planning, your wing took over the leadership as President Alfonso lost control of the country. The moment to make a move had come. You can blame Alfonso on Crisis on Television, bribe and extorted Alfonso, or advise Alfonso to step down. Let's try do this privately. Let's not make an enemy for life. He listened to your advice. Alfonso conceded the leadership struggle, and the party eventually voted you in because of your indisputable influence. Following this, you announced that you would be running for president in the general election with Peter as your running mate. It was your turn. After visiting every city and town during the campaign, you made a speech on state television. We can preserve national values or enact democratic reforms. No, let's try be democratic here. The people are tired of empty promises. We need fundamental change in our institutions and government. A solid and transparent democracy awaits us, brothers and sisters. A new constitution, a new age is upon us. On election day, millions went out to cast their votes. It was time to face the truth. Chapter 1, President Rayne. We made it. Okay, so choose the distinct look of President Anton Rayne. The confirmed style will remain throughout the story and you won't be able to change it later. Ooh, we can wear a trilby or a gentleman's hat. Or we can go be like Elvis Presley or bald. No, I like the white trilby. Facial hair, we definitely need some more facial hair. But personally not looking like an Amish. Person, idealist, clean shaven, intellectual, sword gentleman, swordist. Oh, I like the beard, yes. Attire, let's go for the... Well, I like the maroon suit, yes. Background, let's stay in the office. And accessories, a pipe, a cigar, thin glasses, brown glasses, black glasses. No, let's go for a pipe. Definitely. I'm definitely sure about my customization choices. Okay, election campaign promises. As Anton Rayne, you have made your consequential promises to the people of Sordland to gain their votes in the 1953 election campaign. Consider these commitments carefully. After the recent market reforms and recession, the country finds itself stuck between two different economic systems with indecision and turbulence, causing the population to demand a direction. Promote market economy or planned economy? I think planned economy would be better. The global rivalries between the capitalist Arcasia in the west, the monarchy of Rumburg to the north, and the communist United Contana in the east are intensifying. Sordland has the potential to align with each other's or lean towards neutrality. I will stick with neutrality, as I think that will allow us more flexibility later down the line. And in terms of the immigration policy, in the last 5 years, Bludish, Vezek and Angolian immigrants flocked to Sordland due to relaxed immigration laws, enacted by Alfonso. As a result, these tensions are causing requests for a political situation. We will retain relaxed immigration for now, we'll have to see. And term focus, education, defence, law enforcement or health. Everyone can get behind the education, let's do that. I'm sure about my decisions. 2 weeks have passed since we won the election, and now is to be sworn in as the 4th President of Sordland. Thousands were watching the inauguration ceremony and cheering my name, Anton Rayne, Anton Rayne. The die was cast. And there my story began. In the distance, the Maroon Palace stood on top of the famous Hill of Pride. I had no way of knowing what future awaited me there. I looked at my family, my son and daughter, Frank and Dina, and next to Monica, my wife. Her eyes were glimmering with pride. Then I turned towards the key people who made it all possible. Of course, each individual was promised an important position within my government. I saw my previous rival and President Alfonso, who gave me a slight nod. Tarquin's soul was invited, but as expected, did not leave his island retreat. As my thoughts slowly faded away, the reality of the situation dawned on me. Also Hawker, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was waiting for me. The time for the oath has come. I am ready. I do solemnly swear that I will respectfully execute the office of the President of Sordland, and to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the people and the Constitution of the Republic of Sordland. You may now deliver your inauguration speech, Mr. President. That feels, by the way, very similar to the US signing in, or swearing in, I should say. Brothers and sisters, change and hope. You, the people, have chosen. Together we will bring prosperity and reform to our nation. It is a time of hope. It is a time of change. If we stand together, we will prevail. In the past, there have been times of survival, times of conflict, and economic hardship too. But whenever we stood together, we prevailed. I promise you we will stop the recession and eliminate poverty. That's a big claim. So I'm going to say first we must rewrite our broken constitution for 1929. Our capacity as a nation has never been stronger. That feels a bit nationalist, but so does that one. So we'll go with the third one. Capacity as a nation has never been stronger. Hundreds of thousands cheered. They were shouting my name in unison. I felt the responsibility, the power and burden all at the same time. Wave, which made the people cheer louder. I took a long look into the people of Sordland to burn this moment into my memory. One of the presidential guards came by to notify me that it was time to leave. I made my way to the leading car in the motorcade. The presidential state car was a jet black Cadillac with flags of Sordland above the front headlights. Next to it, a man was holding the door. Hello, Mr. President. I still felt euphoric from the aftermath of my speech. Here my new title made me smile even more. If you allow me to introduce myself, I am Sergei, your new driver. Nice to meet you, Sergei. It's an honour. He respectfully bowed his head before opening the car door and gesturing inside. We will be heading towards the palace. On the way, Sergei proceeded to explain his duties as driver. It's a beauty, isn't it? The Maroon Palace. He was right. Sunlight glinted off the palace's many maroon-coloured domes. It was so bright that I had to look away. Every time I look at it, I'm reminded of my duty to this nation. So do I, Sergei. It's the beating heart of the nation after all. Well said, Mr. President. Definitely want to keep our driver on side, and he's also our bodyguard. Definitely someone we want to keep on side, that's for sure. Sergei got out of the car and opened the door for me. Have a great day, Mr. President. Morgana Vesko. He was referring to the famous swordless phrase from the times of revolution. Morgana Vesko. Vecten Sista, which meant morning will come, victory is close. I made my way upstairs through the extravagant corridors of the palace. Marble and engraved wooden finishes decorated the interior. My footsteps echoed in the colossal halls. The guards bowed their heads in respect as I opened the massive doors to my new office. And here we go. Into the game proper. Let's just have a quick look at the map. So here we are in Holsword. This is only part of the country. There's a lot that we're going to have to do. Goodness me, there's a lot of people nearby. But here, in the centre, this is our area. 7 news, we've got overview, we've got connections. This is our cabinet. We've got our vice president, chief of staff. All people who I'm sure will meet as time goes on. Codex, we've got former presidents. Our journal, so this is our decision on turn 1. We also have news. We'll get to that as time goes on. For now, though, we'll go to Holsword, and we've got a few things to do. Let's read the report first. Logistical issues from Holsword. The mayor expressed growing concerns about escalating traffic congestion. That's probably something we can deal with. The lack of comprehensively designed large-scale land-based logistics hub. Okay, so we need to help them with their logistics. Gotcha. We'll start with the economic situation, then we'll go into the political situation. Simon Hall, Gus Manger, and Lydia Graff were about to arrive at the White Room for our scheduled economy meeting. This was held in the Maroon Palace, where all important meetings were held. 2 assistants arrived first, carrying a heavy projector. They stood by it by the door, waiting for the ministers to enter. From the hallway, I could hear Lydia Graff's voice. She was using the patient, almost motherly tone she often took in heated arguments. Gus, do you really think that an uncommonly advanced area is in more need of investment than Agnerland? Lilius, my interior minister, strode in. She was clad in shades of brown and beige. The only spot of colour was a bright yellow cross on her neck. Gus followed close behind. Don't be an idiot, Lilius. What about the unemployment crisis the Greater Wholesword and Gelsland regions are going through? These areas are our economic heartland. Gus curled his hands into his fists. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development's temper hadn't changed since his days in the Alfonso administration, but neither had his reputation for getting things done. His far-reaching network of connections was unlike any other. Simon Hall quickly stepped between the two ministers without looking at either of them. He cleared his throat. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. How are you? I'm very well motivated, Mr. Rayne. It feels our ministers are the same. Oh, just as expected with my cabinet, how's it going, Gus and Lilius? It's looking good, sir, although there seems to be a lot of work that requires attention. Especially about lifting people out of poverty, certainly a challenge. I'm feeling fairly confident about the current state of affairs, says Lilius. We've already begun restructuring local governments and introducing new safety measures. Off to a good start. If there's anything you need help with, reach out to me. I'm going to say no. Let's try keep the ministers happy. Good. I'm confident in your abilities. That is appreciated. We will not disappoint you. Thank you, Mr. President. Now I'd like to show you the latest economic situation. My staff and I have comprehensively analysed every aspect of... he was interrupted by a groan from one of the assistants by the door, both of whom were now visibly struggling to hold up the heavy projector. Oh, you can put that there. He pointed below the painting of President Sol. The assistants placed the projector next to the table and installed a white screen on the wall. Leave now? Thank you, and please leave now. Interesting. We will wait. We're not going to yawn because that looks rude. Simon, what happened to the new police station construction in Estord? We'll go through his briefcase. He paused for a moment to answer. It got stored due to a government property boundary issue. I'd be mean to look at it. I can take a look at that one. Estord needs all the security help it can get. Sure. More time for me to spend on analysis. His eye glittered when he found the slides he was looking for. There have been some developments about the Sordland Wren losing further value today. We've been trying to stabilise it with the central bank. The recession of 51 put enormous pressure on the economy, resulting in the collapse of the value of our currency. The entire situation was a significant cause of concern for our administration. What would you like to know about the current economic situation? GDP, status of the recession, unemployment. Let's go with status of the recession. The economy has been in recession of about -6% in the last year. The average GDP has dropped from 15,454 per capita to 10,000 from 1951 to now. This administration's success depends on our ability to stop the recession. The sooner we can reach GDP growth, the better. What is the unemployment and inflation rate? Unemployment has skyrocketed and is now at a staggering 16%, and the inflation is at a relatively high 10%. Unemployment is increasing crime and drug use. We need to get people off the streets. The inflation isn't helping our average citizen either. And what is our GDP and debt situation? Our current GDP is 310 Sordland Wren, and the national debt is 427 billion. Oh, that's a lot of debt. It's still hard to fathom that we lost nearly 150 billion in wealth. The past 3 years were tough. Okay, let's look at the economic strategy. As you can see, the situation is alarming, but not everything is negative. The extensive privatisation program of Alfonso and key foreign direct investments left us in a large budget surplus which we can use to stabilise the crisis. The primary subject we need to settle on is what general path we will take in our term. Solonomics-based nationalisation happened in the 30s, and Alfonso privatisation began during the end of the 40s. What will our administration focus on? One of the main promises was to promote a planned economy to stop the recession. To be frank, I still don't think this was a good idea. We shouldn't go back to Solomonics. It's the reason of the recession. Self-sufficiency will help in tough times. Simon has ignored. Ooh, this is going to matter, isn't it? What are the consequences of the free market? There are not many, but one could say that we are much more likely to be influenced by the world economy. It's important to think about this subject because the upswings of the world economy will affect good on ours too. And when the global economy crashes, we go down with it. The structural problem of solar monarchs were going to lead to a recession according to the predictions of the time anyway. Either way, even if we pick one of the doctrines, we retain the option to make economic choices on a case-by-case basis. That is, however, not recommended in my point of view. The last thing we need is a chaotic economic plan. And Gus agrees. There's another important point that has an important impact on our economy: superpowers. We have done well not aligning ourselves with any one of them. Economically speaking, an isolationist policy could overall only work if they were to reap the benefits of both spheres and their rivalry. This is very dangerous to attempt, but possible. We must be cautious. There are schemes being devised about Sordland. We cannot give in to their wants now or in the future. Otherwise the country will turn into a pawn. I haven't decided if they wish to come to a deal. Sol was right all along. Sordland will not be controlled by any nations. Time will show if anything neutral will work out. We must make it work to protect our country and our values. There is no other way. We need to be open to other possibilities. Arcadia is a strong country, and if we end up in their sphere, Sordland would increase its influence around the world. The deals we would get would surely bring us out of recession. In return for what? Our independence? When the time comes, I hope you make the right decision for our own good. We should attract more foreign direct investment, Mr. President. We saved the country from a full-on depression in 1952 and 53 by signing lucrative trade deals with nations such as Risia, Lesbia, and Queenal. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Minister Witchy will be in charge of informing you on these types of foreign policy decisions. We must first decide on our internal economic plans. What's on our long-term economic schedule? Pick a construction company, trade relations, tax reform, and welfare privatizations or nationalisation initiatives would be some of them. We must choose wisely and remember the free market economy is in all forms in the future of the world. Let's not planned economy for the boom or capitalist free market reforms. Capitalist free market reforms. Let's give it a go. The recession was the direct result of his free market reforms. History must note that the reason for the recession was because Alfonso betrayed his party. That is not true. There was plenty of time for him to do it. If you can't make change happen in 2 years, then you're at fault. Let's move on to the conclusion. What are your final thoughts, Mr. President? I think this is right, though. Critical institutions must remain in state control. We must be fully responsible in delivering services. Health, education, as it were. Few could be, and it wouldn't be negative, but either way you make the choices. So what will our general economic plan promote? Free market or planned? Planned. I hope that's the right decision. Not sure if we made the right decision here. Gus looks worried. Now that there is clarity on which direction we are heading, I will work on a good plan accordingly. Concludes the meeting. At our next gathering, we will talk about the upcoming infrastructure investment plan. They disperse for lunch, and we can go on to the political situation. Peter Vecton announced arrived a couple of minutes early and sat across from me. He was struggling to hold back his smile. We did it, Anton. We won, finally. After all these years, with our noses to the grindstone, it's paid off. Enjoying the new secretary I picked out for you? Thought you'd appreciate her gorgeous set of talents. Come on, Peter, you're better than this. It's a shame the rest of your stuff aren't as easy on the eyes. But hey, back in university, did you ever imagine we'd be sitting here in the Maroon Palace? We have to celebrate the great victory. This is not the time to celebrate, Peter. We have work to do. Yes, I agree. We've got things to do today. We can let loose of the ball. Let's move on with the meeting. We'll be talking about our political strategy for this term. Lucian and I had a meeting with the party and the reformists. We mostly see eye to eye, but I would want to know what you think. Let's go over this when Lucian arrives. Here comes Lucian, my chief strategist. He was a compact man with sharp bird-like features. After briefly surveying the room from wall to wall, he sat down, poured a glass of water and opened his briefcase in a series of quick, graceful movements. Gentlemen. You're exactly on time. Hello, Peter. He slightly bowed his head. How are you, Lucian? I'm ready and able, sir. Lucian spoke in soft, clipped tones that immediately drew your attention towards whatever he had to say. Peter and I waited for him to proceed. Let's start by evaluating our current situation. The majority of the Sordland people demand change. They are more concerned about the economy than the constitution, but they blame the system for their problems. People are losing their trust in our democracy. Why do you think radicals like Bernard Circus, who are you? He's a poet, a novelist, and short story writer, and a communist. Are becoming more popular. Everyone's expecting us to bring the change that the last government did not. Franz Richter, leader of the Reformists, believes that true change can only be accomplished by transferring some of our powers to the Assembly. I'll move on to the details of their demands shortly. We need to listen to the people. Exactly what we campaigned for, a true change that will move the country forward. We will need many allies against the Old Guard in the government. Who are the Old Guard, and what are the Old Guard? Okay, so they're people from the past. They've got connections to the deep state, clandestine organisation. Gotcha. While the reformist right wing inside our party, the reformist wing inside our party is still a minority, they could have a tripartisan majority in the Assembly, especially if they unite under Franz Richter. Mr. Richter could be a potential ally in our goal to maintain a majority in the Assembly. He's definitely key in this. The Reformist demands are clear. They wanted to limit the President's veto powers, ensure that the Supreme Court is independent, and take away the Court's right to vote on the constitutional amendments. We must listen to their demands, otherwise we're no different than the previous administrations. I agree, we can't ignore the winds of change after all. The Old Guard will do its best to preserve the Constitution. Chief Justice Hawker and his allied judges have a great influence over the Supreme Court, which will be tough to break. Interesting. The Court also has the final say over constitutional legislation. Without their approval, we cannot even change it. We must break the power of the Supreme Court one way or another. We've got to get rid of the Old Guard somehow. I agree, they have too much power over Swordish politics. We need to take away their vote in constitutional legislation. It's absurd that they get to vote for their bills when they aren't even elected. We can't underestimate this situation. We can figure it out. Our party still holds 130 out of 250 seats in the Assembly. We've got the power. That's only 5 seats, Peter. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. However, to reform the Constitution, we must receive a 2/3 majority in the Grand National Assembly, which is 166 votes, and a simple majority in the Supreme Court, which equals to 6 votes. After we have settled on how to proceed, we will need to talk with our party figures. Our first goal must be to get to the 150 signatures needed to start the process. Following the green light from the USP, we will reach out to the other party leaders to see if they will back our draft. The last step is to convince the justices of the court. The entire process will take a long time. We must start working with the Reform Committee to evaluate all possibilities for a new constitution as soon as possible. We write a more democratic constitution with the reformists. We've got to go for democracy, really. That's what we've been preparing for internally. Don't forget that promise is what got us elected. The key thing here is strengthening the power of the Assembly, which we already lead with a majority. Yes, the divisions of power need to be rebalanced for better Sordland. According to the initial draft we made with the reformists, there are 2 changes to the Constitution that are not open for discussion. First, the Supreme Court will no longer vote on constitutional amendments. Second, the President's absolute veto will be taken away. This can be replaced with a limited veto system by fixing the current loopholes. I have no problem with these clauses. I think we need to work with the reformists, even if we didn't want those clauses. So I think we would have to take them in anyway. I just don't see what we could do in the meantime. We will form a reform committee together with all parties and start reaching out to the stakeholders in the Assembly and the Court for a new constitution. By later in the year, we should have an idea of the reform contents and what the other parties want. Another important point, we must be aware of the Lotherberg Group. The oligarchs convene under this organisation to influence economic policies. Conrath led it for a long time before falling ill. The new leader is Mr. Walter Tusk. According to reports, some members of the National Business Council are in their pockets. Tusk and the group will surely try to bribe us in exchange for special economic protections. I will enter into a... I'm not going to be bought. It's just not going to happen. Alfonso said the same thing. I doubt there was anything else to turn to in his case. As far as I know, Marcel Coronti has some strong ties to this group. His influence could definitely be an asset for us, but I'm sure he'll want something in return. The group's influence is an important force, one that we should use to our administration's advantage, as long as they don't take advantage of us. If we can get them to side with us, it all depends on what benefits we can offer and what the leader wants. We need to tread carefully on all sides with our power players to survive our term. I need to underline the seriousness of the situation. The military and the general staff are a powerful element in the state, and as history tells us, a dangerous one too. We do have some room to make structural changes, by reducing the budget for example, but it is quite limited. I want to receive the advice of the military before making up my mind. That's arguably the best choice. It is sound to listen to them, but they have very biased and narrow opinions. Nationalism clouds their minds. General Kruger is a spectre of the past, as to be expected, really. Defence Minister Josef Lancier is more loyal to us compared to General Kruger. The fact that obviously can change with our actions. Either way, I see a potential rift between the two, since they are clearly of different minds. If we act strongly against the military, both these guys will unite against us. I agree with Lucien, and we need to tread carefully here. Well then, gentlemen, precisely 30 minutes. This concludes our political briefing for today. Our next meeting will be about media strategy. Talk to you soon, sir. I will keep in touch. Interesting. And now we have the meeting on the media strategy. We read the reports and a couple of other major reports. But I think, as the die has been cast, we will leave it there for now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your new series. And goodness me, I'm looking forward to this. I love politics. I watched House of Cards so many times when it first came out, and I greatly enjoyed it. So this will be a new series, and the other series will be a little bit of a surprise coming along soon as Lake Berkeley is done, as that will be done in the near future. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.